Welcome to View from Left Field, where we analyze and discuss the weekly news. I'm your host, Will, and today we will be talking about Elon Musk at the inauguration, Trump's ramping up of deportations, as well as Republicans blaming DEI for the LA fires. On our panel today, we have Jerry,
Hey, everyone.
Jimmy,
Hey, folks.
Tex,
Hey, y'all.
and Nolan.
Hello.
No, Nolan's here.
He is, in fact. So I think we should probably address this elephant in the room, which is, I think we all know, the salute that Elon Musk gave at the inauguration on January 20th.
He just wanted to give his heart out.
The most
And-
deranged excuse I've seen is that it's because he's autistic. And last
Yup.
time I checked, even if your special interest is Nazism, I don't think being autistic makes you a Nazi.
My favorite was that that people had said that, they had said exactly that. They gave, or I think I also saw someone say that, oh, he was doing sign language. It was sign language for this, and or like, oh, he was just doing it because he was getting nervous, or that's all kinds of excuses. But it's like he did it 2 or 3 times at the rally. It's like I don't think you can, even trying to make an excuse for one time is a stretch, but doing it twice, like, come on.
They said, don't pay attention to what your eyes are telling you.
Right.
It's
Jerry,
just-
you look like you have some
Go,
thoughts
Jerry.
going on.
So many that it's just hard to get it all out at once, and that's it. That's what I kind of find what I'm going through. I mean, I can think of situations in my life where Nazis, for lack of a better term, would do that in front of me. I remember I was on a flight to New York, and I met some Estonian kids. They were like doing some internship, and we got to talking about everything because I like meeting new people. And suddenly their body language just changes when I mention about my background, my Jewish background, and it was like you could just see them change into something like horrifying. And they would start doing that, give my heart out, also known as a Nazi salute, right next to me. And I didn't know how to take it. It's like, because it's like you're just surprised to see it. Like you kind of do like a double take. And I think a lot of people here, when they saw that, had a double take. Well, there's no way he actually meant that. But then he does it again. So if that wasn't the first time, it wasn't solidified. The second time should tell you that. Well, he did again facing the other side of the crowd. If it was something awkward, then why was it done awkwardly twice the same way? That's not the point. Like he knew what he was doing, and he probably got around with like a bunch of his friends. He think he likes having people around him like appreciate him for attention, kind of like Trump. He's been on YouTube trying to play video games, and it turns out that he doesn't know how to play these video games, but he wants the attention that he knows how to play these video games. So he like pays people to, I don't really understand
Boost.
it. Like,
He
Yeah.
pays people to basically boost or like play the game for him. It's
it's
almost
right.
sad.
It
Yeah.
is, and that's if I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, which beyond all the other stuff we're going to, like his connections to Nazi parties in Germany and whatnot, or his family, like look into his family, like Canadian Nazis. I forget where they were from that decided, well, this whole South Africa apartheid state thing, I really like what's going on there. I think I'm going to buy some emerald mines where, like where they have like the most oppressive labor possible, and, start an empire there. And like, there's his family's ties to it, but it's just like a very juvenile thing that you see online, like in a 4chan.
Yeah.
and that's what Twitter now is. He's made it 4chan for everyone, and he loves it. But it's his world, and he gets to do it because he has so much money. But yeah, it's a Nazi salute.
So I think you said it is like, why did he do it? Like, let's give it the full benefit of the doubt. Like, oh, it wasn't just, oh, he tripped and like accident, like it was an accident or something. Let's assume that he was completely within his full mind and knew what he was doing. Does this just fall under the category of like your regular like fascist dog whistle sort of behavior where it's like, oh, I'm going to do this thing that is blatantly obvious, but if anybody calls me out, I'll deny it, but everybody who I'm supposed to,
Yep.
everybody who's on the far right who knows and appreciates it, they get what they want, and then I just deny it to everybody else. Like that's typical behavior.
Typical Nazi
That
behavior.
yeah,
Fascist.
exactly. So
Like,
is that it?
I
Is
really
that,
do
can we
think it's
say
that easy.
people
okay?
like to think
Okay.
that like millennials invented trolling with the internet. Like, see what the Nazis did in order to get to their place. Like, they would always, talk about how their freedom of speech is being taken away, that they couldn't say things, and then make the liberal kind of establishment look weak while they continue to grow in that way. This is just a tactic. It's a fascist tactic that, of course, people, maybe has a swastika tattoo on him, but that's not how fascism works, as we know. You need the
Yeah.
capitalist class or big business to support the capitalists. It doesn't matter if you're Elon Musk or Henry Ford. Like, this is
Yeah.
par for the course, really.
That's my biggest problem with the way that I guess the mainstream media in general has covered it, or I guess you could say like the way that liberals are losing their minds. And it's like, yeah, I get it. It was a Nazi salute at an inauguration. That's not a small story, but it's how people who are obsessed with spectacle will point to this and say, this is the fascism. And it's like, no, the fascism is in the policies. The fascism is in the geopolitics. The fascism is what the government is doing. And what you said, Jerry, is its reliance on the capitalist class being the most reactionary, most chauvinistic part of financial capital, and so on and so forth. And people will just focus on the Nazi salutes and the
Correct.
swastika tattoos. And I think that's my biggest criticism of how a lot of liberal analysis of the situation is it's like, yo, if you're losing your mind over the rise of fascism right now in 2025 and it took you this long, it's like, where have you been for the past 9 years now? Or yeah, 9 years. Like, come on now. Come on, son.
Well, and I think for that, and I wanted to say this, and then I wanted to go over a couple articles on the matter, but like, I think a lot of that does come down to the analysis of like what fascism is, right? Because I think for a lot of liberals, fascism, at least to them, they see fascism or the only way they know of it is by some of its what do I want to say? Like some of the things that come about because of fascism, right? So like anti-Semitism and a lot of like the extreme racism and xenophobia, things like that. But of course, we know like those are those are things that happen because of the monopoly capital taking over or striking back against the working class, right? So they use these other tactics as well on top of that. I think a lot of liberals miss the class aspect of fascism, if that makes sense. They just think about all the other stuff, not the class aspect of it, that's why I think a lot of them miss the rise of fascism, or they don't really understand kind of like where it came from or how it's progressed. It's because they miss that kind of fundamental aspect of it, I
They're
think.
Well, they know how it
perpetuating.
progressed. It's now we gotta not use Twitter X at all. We're gonna ban that.
Right.
And sorry you had that interaction, Jerry, because one thing I've learned in life is never ask a man his salary, a woman his age, or a Baltic nationalist who they fought for in World War II.
That was my mistake, right? They were really young. They were on like a internship. They were like 19 or something. So it's their grandfathers and whatnot, but that shouldn't surprise you. I mean, fascism and anti-Semitism is well and alive in America, but it definitely is in Europe and in the Eastern countries as well.
Stalin made many mistakes, like not going to Paris or purging the Baltics or West Ukraine.
So this first article I wanted to get into was from the United Jewish People's Fraternal Order, and they had written an article on Musk, and the title is just very straightforward. Just says Elon Musk's Nazi salute must be condemned. And I'm going to start kind of a little bit of a ways down on the article and just highlight some things, because this Nazi salute, Musk's use of fascism, is not new. It's definitely something that I would say he's held as far as a position now for a while. I think we're just seeing it now coming out in a much more aggressive way. But in the article, they go on, they say Elon Musk in the past has shown support for fascist groups and individuals. In a previous article, and they talked about Musk showing support for the neo-Nazi group in Germany, which is the Alternative for Germany, or AFD. Musk has also defended the founder of the British National Party, Islamophobe and neo-Nazi Tommy Robinson. Robinson has been imprisoned for contempt of court due to his repeated racially charged libel of a 15-year-old Syrian boy through social media posts. In 2020, Musk showed support for a military coup d'etat led by Christian nationalists of the socialist-led Bolivian government. Musk wrote on X, which was known as Twitter at the time, on the issue, "We will coup whoever we want, deal with it." After seizing power, the now defunct Bolivian coup administration immediately announced plans to invite corporations, including Elon Musk's Tesla, to exploit Bolivia's lithium reserves, which are needed to produce the batteries in Tesla models. And this is the last thing I wanted to say on it. One of the first things the Nazis did when they took power was to make labor within Germany subservient to their bosses. Musk achieves his self-interest of profit by reducing the amount he pays his workers. Despite high injury rates, long hours, and below industry pay, Musk has been vehemently against any attempt at trade unions forming within his company's walls. This explains why he's been so aggressive in ending the National Labor Relations Board's oversight of how companies can treat their employees.
So it's just his interests. Like and that's what it's like. Well, it's kind of what is in Elon Musk's heart. It's like he's giving his heart out, but that's the whole point. Maybe why he even said that, because we want to think what his real intentions are, without really thinking objectively what his bottom line is, like his class interest as a multi-billionaire, corporate business venture mogul. That's it.
Yeah, and when you put all of that together, like you said, his class interests, I mean, we can see that it's no surprise why he wants to practically end the NLRB. He called it unconstitutional. And it's funny, there's been times where he's like on video at these like conventions and talking about unions, and he goes, "Oh, I don't like unions because they create a lords versus peasants situation." And it's like, well,
What?
There is video of him saying that, and it's so laughable because you can clearly see from that and how he has anytime people have tried to unionize or even do a campaign for unionization at a plant, I mean, he has been vicious towards employees, and we can of course see where that comes from. Another thing that was mentioned in that article was his support for Germany's AfD party. And this is one that I was even surprised to hear him say. It's the fact that he like said these words out loud. Because we know that the capitalist class will eventually turn to fascist tactics, to keep themselves in power. But it's the fact that he would come out and he would say these things. So this was from CNN, and it was Elon Musk speaks at Germany's AfD campaign launch as thousands protest the far right party. And going just a ways down, he said, Musk, a close ally of U.S. President Donald Trump, stressed the importance that people take pride in Germany and being German, a sentiment that was met with rapturous cheers at the AfD rally. The billionaire also addressed the issue of immigration, a key issue in the election, urging Weidel and her supporters not to lose their national pride in, quote, some kind of multiculturalism that dilutes everything. Dog whistle there.
Another choice quote from that speech was that children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents, let alone their great-grandparents. So it really can't get any more on the nose than that.
Right. Oh my
He's
God.
probably not referring to the Communist Party of Germany, right? Probably those other guys whose great grandparents were doing stuff back in the day.
Oh yeah, I think the Freikorps, they were very important for Germany, stabilized it after the end of the World War, all that. Of course, the mainstream media is never going to mention any of this except, he went on Joe Rogan once and almost inhaled stuff, and then Tesla lost 20% of its stock value. Oh no!
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you ever read Mein Kampf, but that sounded like Mein Kampf. I is straight up like the German people should be looking at their fathers like kings, and we should be creating myths about them regardless of what the facts are. Very straight up, just sounds like Hitler.
Yeah, it's yeah, that is wild to hear.
Yeah, my father, King Heimler the First, was going to go on to do great things in life. Unfortunately, he got gout at an early age, so was mostly bedridden for most times. And unfortunately, he passed away while trying to pass a tapeworm on the chamber pot. Fortunately, though, he did reproduce to have me record this story to you guys in this day and age.
Oh my God. So I don't know what other way to explain it or to say it other than just like, the mask, of course, is, I think he's Elon Musk is just over having any kinds of, I guess, mask to really cover himself. And, it seems that way, especially ever since he bought Twitter. I mean, I remember seeing the things he would tweet on there about like the woke mind virus and like all this stuff. It's like it just became more and more prevalent and aware that that's where he was coming at all of this from.
Yeah, because I do think that he's that petty. He loves the intention. And it just so happens, I don't think it's a coincidence that the people that went around to praise Musk as like the great savior, and a lot of these other forces are like the 4chan neo-Nazi groups that like to see, anti-Semitic posts and hatred, and whether it's against anyone. And, with his money, he can allow it. He can even get Jewish, supposedly, organizations fighting anti-Semitism, like the ADL, to say, well, it was just an awkward, gesture.
Especially
They've
after...
accused him of anti-Semitism in the past,
Mhm.
but I think Musk, it's hard to trace his money because of super PACs and everything, but that's all he has to do. He just says, here, shut up. Here's some hush money.
The ADL really showed their hand waving away his salute after they've spent the last year calling anyone who in any way speaks out on behalf of the people of Gaza and Palestine anti-Semitic for saying free Palestine, and then someone can literally see Heil behind the seal of the President of the United States, and they're like, he's just kind of weird.
According to the ADL, a watermelon is a symbol of hate.
Yeah.
Right. Just a weird little guy. And on that with Trump as well, we have noticed since Trump got into office on the 20th, I haven't kept track of every single executive order that he signed. I know there was just right, exactly. It's like there was just so many of them that I saw. It's like he signed this, he signed that, but one thing I have seen is that there was an increase in deportation or anti-immigrant legislation that was going through. One of them even, there was an article that was put up by NBC that said Mexico refuses to accept a U.S. deportation flight. What surprised me right away is that, so this article was written on the 24th, so 4 days after Trump was inaugurated, and we already have flights that were, basically rounding up people and trying to send them back.
Military flights.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think just that surprised me, is that how fast they started putting those things into effect. Like, because I feel like a lot of times that, we hear a lot about deportations, and there certainly have been a lot of deportations throughout the years, but I feel like a lot of times that stuff maybe drags its feet, or it maybe takes a while for things like that to take effect. But it's like 4 days, within a matter of days, he's already trying to send people back and just get them all out of the country.
And there's lots of reports of ICE raids happening nationwide, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so that was the big promise. I mean,
right.
He's got to provide on day one, because that promise was so much at the forefront. So not only is it happening, but it's got to be a spectacle as well as a policy.
Sure.
I think that's totally accurate.
Yeah.
Already, I think there have been judges that ruled against executive order that would basically prevent naturalized citizens, or that were born from non-citizens, American citizenship. I know that that's already been put up in the court. But I remember last time he was elected, and I feel like this is deja vu, but was it like, is this more like, because I think that was the promise in this time we're not going to make mistakes because we know what we're doing this time. Well, they've already kind of it's just kind of like shooting from the hip and seeing what sticks, and seeing where that goes. But it does seem like it's definitely more cruel this time. But maybe I have amnesia too of how bad it was.
No, if he wanted to do it without making mistakes, he'd do what Barack Obama did, and the numbers he pushed in deporting people and tearing apart families. Of course, though, Barack Obama had that gentlemanly persona, or I guess he had a facade as a competent and all around good to work with person. So everyone just ignored that. Same with or I guess with Joe Biden's case, it was, well, he's kind of old doddering. He doesn't know where he is. But The deportations kind of continued.
How
Same policies that
see,
Obama did.
Not even kinda. There were
All
like
Trump
record
did,
numbers under
all
Biden.
Trump is doing is
Yep.
basically, once again, ripping the Band-Aid off everything the state's been doing to marginalize people.
but
Yeah.
isn't a different, because I agree, and the numbers just outweigh what Trump did in his first presidency. But isn't the way it's happening though just like a slap in the face of the Constitution? Yes, the way it was done through Biden and Obama. I mean, you could just say, "Oh, they were deporting children and ripping families apart the right way," and it's. But like this degree has like a stronger precedence because of how it just rips through the Constitution and whatnot. So it's like getting us ready for something way worse. I'm not saying,
Maybe.
like,
So yeah, the cancellation of people who have applied for asylum for actually staying in the states, that's pretty much going against a ton of court precedences. They may be doing a lot of stuff now, but they're going to get a ton of legal challenges on that. I would love to see how he overcomes the 14th Amendment with denying birthright citizenship. That's going to be interesting to see. But
The issue, I think, is the Supreme Court is obviously completely corrupt, and they are willing to throw out precedent that's been standing for 100 years. That's what the liberals keep telling us. Oh, don't worry. It's unconstitutional to end birthright citizenship. It's unconstitutional to do this and that. And the Constitution says it so plainly. But the Supreme Court does not care about the Constitution, and they have an overwhelming majority that they can vote for whatever Trump says.
The court, though, I would think would, especially in the 14th Amendment like that, if they rule against that, there is no legitimacy in the public's eyes of the court anymore. And they're already on thin ice. People know, like, okay, so the court's saying, okay, Roe v. Wade's thrown out. They are basically all these old unelected people. I would love to see the court shoot their.
kind of lost you, Nolan.
I think I pick
Hello?
up what
Hello?
he's saying. You're back. So it could go either. So do we think it could go either way though? Like the Supreme Court could rule against the 14th Amendment, but then they would be even more delegitimized.
Yeah.
And then who knows what
Constitutional
would
I-
happen beyond there.
Honestly do not see the Supreme Court doing that, especially John Roberts and some of the people near him, because he's still young. He's got some time. He wants to ride this out. Now you get someone like Thomas. I'm pretty sure he'd be like, oh, well, yeah, I can kind of see the point, both sides of this, even though, well, maybe my wife's got some side business where she employs people that she depends on them not being actual U.S. citizens. So I don't see the
Yeah.
What they can get away with. Like, I think there were a lot of liberals or even leftists that were saying, well, there's no way they're going to reverse or turn over Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
And yet it happened. And it's been kind of just like dismantling of a lot of that, I would say, like institutionalized safety nets. That could go, it doesn't, just as that as an indicator, I just don't think it's going to be in or favor. I don't have faith.
I also think both parties need to fundraise off the court one way or the other. So the court delegitimizing themselves is not in their interests.
Right.
As well.
Go figure. Imagine that.
So, and another thing on that too is that, this whole anti-immigration kind of sweep that's been going over too. I mean, it's also affecting Native Americans because we've seen there have been articles that have come out now that basically reported Navajo people were being detained by these immigration sweeps. So this was an article from the Arizona Mirror, and it starts out and says, as U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, of course, intensifies its efforts to apprehend and deport undocumented immigrants throughout the country, concerns is rising among indigenous communities residing in urban areas about reports of indigenous people being detained in the valley. Since Donald Trump issued his executive order for an increase in ICE raids, Navajo tribal leaders have received alarming reports that their tribal members are being detained, heightening uncertainties over the implications these actions have for their communities and the safety of their people. We now know that Navajo people and enrolled members of other tribes are being detained in Phoenix and other cities by ICE, Navajo Nation Councilor Speaker Crystalline Curley said during a committee meeting on Thursday. The reports that we have received indicate that we need to coordinate an operation or some type of response to help our enrolled tribal members here on the Navajo Nation. And lastly, on Thursday, Navajo tribal leaders reported they had received calls and text messages from Navajo people living in urban areas who have been stopped, questioned, or detained by ICE. These reports sparked outrage among Navajo Nation council members and prompted a detailed discussion of the topic during a committee meeting. So, even indigenous people aren't safe with
That's
this.
right.
And it goes back to this idea of, this Trump wants to deport all these people, but I mean we're talking about indigenous
So
Americans.
like,
where you're going to
where are you
deport
gonna
them.
deport me, white man? It's like,
Right.
so it's not an immigration issue, is what you're telling me?
Right. It's almost like it's something more.
They're saying if you're not white, you're not safe from ICE.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we
Need to be
don't
living
like
under
you,
fear.
we're coming for you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. As if indigenous people haven't, suffered enough.
and
Exactly.
think of the profits that could be made on indigenous land with certain resources, as we've seen, with like the pipelines and whatnot. So
Hmm.
it's all a convenience, and it's that kind of convenience that I think happens on purpose.
Yeah, and like, on that too, the from the state that I'm from, our governor actually just got, I believe she was just brought in as department what is it? Homeland Security Secretary, and that's South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. So
Dog shooter, is that the one?
yes, yep, the dog shooter. And
Oh.
so she had tweeted it out too, and she's was like, "Oh, thanks, Mr. President, for making me, Homeland Security, whatever." And then she said, "I'll work to make America safe again." It's it's always make America blank again, and it's like, okay, what do you really like? You want to make it safe? What do you really mean? Like,
Mhm.
it's yeah.
So like these dog whistles, they're just like barks now, aren't
Like
they?
dog
Yeah.
bullhorns.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Just like it's in your ear and it's not going away. It's not a little whistle anymore.
And I don't even know if people are conscious of it, like racists or white nationalists or Nazis. I don't know if they're necessarily conscious of, oh, that is it. That is he really meant that we are the superior race. But it's like when they get that kind of same coded message, that narrative, that it's just activated for them. And I think that is how that kind of dog whistling works. Not to go on a tangent or anything, but it's just what I think, and I want to hear that now.
I think that like white supremacists and those types of people, I think they understand dog whistles. I do think that like when they hear something, they know that like, oh, I know what you really mean by that. And
Most
the only
cases,
reason why
yeah.
I say that is because I have known like far right people in the past who they will, it's like when they say certain things, uh what am I trying to say? It's like they're trying to very nonchalantly say like, oh, this person or like this race is inferior, but obviously they can't just say that. They have to say like, oh, well, oh, it's a shame about those genetics, or oh, it's a shame that like X, Y, Z, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that they definitely understand what it is that's being said, and I think they understand that that it's meant to signal something,
I think
but
that
it's
that's true
trying
for
to go. Yeah.
for people who are like really deep in the sauce, they get it. Like they
Yeah.
know what they're looking for. I think for
Right.
your average person, like your average Trump voter, your average Republican, they don't know. I think it's kind of more on what Jerry's saying, where they're like, oh yeah, this kind of makes sense or whatever, but
Sure.
they're not thinking 1488 when
Oh, sure.
Trump is
Right.
talking.
Right.
But those
Yeah.
people who are really deep, those 4chan users or whatever, yeah, they know what's up.
Right. Sure.
I think it's
Yeah.
also there's another factor of it is it's also to sort of discombobulate where people who don't know are, are left confused or it's
Mhm.
like I was saying earlier is like it'll get people all up in it, it'll make people like panic and or ask stupid questions like, oh, was it really a Nazi salute? Like just useless like
Correct.
brain space.
Yeah.
And then you and if it's leaving a lot of people confused or like not sure what is even like real anymore, then that is the successful purpose of a lot of the dog whistling. So
Absolutely.
in
Yeah.
response to that, part of what you should do is well, if not ignore it, at the very least just don't get too caught up in it. Try to try to cut through the bullshit as it is. And also don't panic. I think that's one thing is people lose their freaking minds over this stuff, and that's just falling into the trap, in my
Mhm.
opinion.
It
Is
distracts us from the
have a
actual work, right?
yep. If you want to be anti-fascist, you can't lose your shit every time you turn around. You have to
Definitely
be calm and collected and analyze things um, like a smart person.
Right. Definitely don't feed the fire in a on a social media of, flame war. It's like it's not it doesn't help. In fact, those kinds, whether that helps or not is another thing, but I think that is definitely the tactic is to discombobulate, like you said, and make people look stupid, and then they take advantage of that. I mean, that is why it works so well. It's well thought out. It's not like a crazy. They're not just being crazy because they're crazy. It is it's part of the tactic, I would say.
Yeah.
And they
And
just real quick, they don't tell you, like you said, we don't need to be ideological about it. We have the materialist analysis on why that it needs to be fought. They never bring it to class. They don't bring it to labor when they talk about fascism. Fascism is just when you're being racist or anti-Semitic to a lot of liberals. That's not how fascism works.
right. Yep. And kind of lastly, I wanted to go over something that we've seen as well with the deportations and anti-immigrant sentiment. We've seen a lot of the talk about DEI, which was God, what does it stand for again?
Diversity,
Diversity
inclusivity,
and
equality,
equality.
and then
Equality.
sometimes
Okay.
they add an A for accessibility.
Okay. Okay. So what? Trump signed an executive order basically saying that he was going to end DEI for federal employees, if I remember right.
Yeah, he revoked the Equal Employment Opportunity Order that I was signed in like 1964 or something like that. I think it was LBJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there was that. One thing I noticed is after that happened is I started seeing a lot of. I saw articles of like, oh, this company decided to end, their equal opportunity, standards or whatever kind of thing they had in place for them. And one thing that came out from Politico was they had an article, and this headline's going to be kind of crazy. It's kind of wild to read, but it says Republicans blame DEI for the LA fires, and then they had an interview with a fire captain out there, and
Woke
so
fire.
yeah, it's exactly, the woke fires. But so they had a very long interview with her. Her name was Lauren, I believe, Andrade. Sorry if I butchered that. So they had a pretty long interview with her, talking about kind of how it affects their line. But I just wanted to read just a tiny bit of it while they were in this interview. So they ask her a question. They say, why is it important for fire departments such as LAFD to have DEI initiatives like its Office of Equity and Human Resources, particularly when resources are scarce? And she says, with communities like Los Angeles, which have very, very diverse communities, there are two parts to that. We're focused on fires right now, but the majority of our calls are medical. When someone calls 911, they're in trauma, they're in crisis. So it's important for whoever walks in the door for there to be trusted immediately. And one of the best ways to do that is to have similarity and relatability. On the other side of the LAFD, and fire departments in general have had a long history of harassment and discrimination. In LAFD, starting in the 90s, they did an independent review. It came out that a lot of firefighters felt if they ever said they were harassed or discriminated against, that there would be retaliation. In 2021, the women in the fire service for LAFD asked the chief at the time to resign because of lack of transparency and accountability, and frankly, the backlog of complaints that weren't being addressed. And, so I kind of want to, to bring it to like kind of the larger, topic of, I guess, quote, DEI, because, I think there are things such as affirmative action, which I believe progressives have long kind of like championed. And then there is, I don't know how to, I think that a lot of corporations like to use DEI, however.
It's a corporate rebranding of affirmative action.
Yeah,
it is. It really is a corporation being like, look at how progressive we are. We're,
It's like woke. It's before it was woke was a pejorative. It was social justice warrior was the pejorative. And now it is DEI. And the reason why is because corporations, their bottom line is profit. So people are not wanting to, spend money at a racist company. They're not going to make money. So it's why video games, start becoming more inclusive and start having like more women roles or, more diverse. It's why movies are that way. It's because people want to see it and they know it. They're going to sell it. DEI, at least in the rebranding of it, of corporations, is kind of just it gets mixed up as part of affirmative action, which sometimes it is, because that Lyndon Johnson LBJ executive order, that was affirmative action, is when he was trying to integrate that, was the civil rights movement was happening.
Yep.
And this is now, we don't even talk about affirmative action. We talk about DEI. And
and the whole LA fires are because of DEI. It's got the same energy as, oh, well, New Orleans got put under by Katrina because of the gays. And it's also the whole push at some places with corporations using this. Is the same as that ad the CIA put out of that, oh God, how did that go? Like, I am a cisgender second-gen Latina with imposter syndrome or something working at the CIA.
Yes, I remember that.
Oh, God.
I remember that. That was like last year or something. Oh, my God.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, especially if with Jerry's reference to the gaming industry, because honestly, that's how I've learned a lot about DEI is, but I think it could be said for at least the entertainment industry in general, is people, and a lot of it gets tied in with wokeism and cancel culture, is the importance of creating a good product starts to become not as important as not getting sued. So there's companies where if they have a DEI department, that can be brought up in civil lawsuits, and they can be like, oh, well, we're not racist. We've got our freaking DEI
That's right.
department. It's like, this
Right.
is my black friend. I couldn't possibly be racist. And people, but of course they've got to staff it. They've got to spend money on it. They've got to do all this. And that takes away from making creative, good movies or video games that are fun to play or have interesting stories, heaven forbid. And, but when it comes down to the bottom line, these companies, it's not as much about, like I said, creating a quality product as it is not getting sued and also looking like a good company for investors. That becomes a bigger priority. So I could some I find it very fascinating. I think we could spend an entire episode on it, but especially if you're looking at like if you're like looking at like manufacturing capital or industrial capital versus finance capital. Industrial capital is all about making a good product, and that's how they make their money. But financial capital is just about investment. So therefore, they care about DEI because I don't know. Like this is the thing is like I feel like I'm a little bit out of my depth in it as well, but it's so fascinating to me in general because I think it's bringing to light a lot of these schisms that exist within the capitalist class itself.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of changing moods. I think that they're trying to anticipate a cultural shift. That's why we see Bezos, Musk, Zuckerberg all at the inauguration, and Meta is now rolling back pretty much any form of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like they are trying to do a full rightward shift, and it's kind of like they see the last 2 decades as being a progressive era where people cared about things like equity, and now they think people don't care, so they don't have to worry about it anymore. They don't have to invest in it anymore.
Yeah. And, to go off of or to read a historical text on this, I think this brings up like a pretty good point. So this was from Herbert Abthaker, and this was on the October Revolution. So he wrote a piece in 1977 for Jewish Affairs, and it was called "Racism, Affirmative Action, and the Bolshevik Revolution." So I'm gonna start just a little bit ways down. He kind of goes into some of the backstory of everything, but when he starts talking about the October Revolution, he says, but what was that revolution if not affirmative action? What was that revolution if not the first successful effort of the last to be first, of the coming to power of the most despised and most exploited, the workers and peasants, especially the women among them, of the vast Tsarist empire? The Bolshevik Revolution was affirmative action to end exploitation, to end oppression, and to do that in the only way it can be done. That is by ending the private ownership of the means of production, by affirming the right of national self-determination, by actively assisting formerly oppressed people to make up for that special oppression, by actively eliminating the distinction between country and city, by terminating the enslavement of women, by wiping out the curse of illiteracy, by overcoming endemic and chronic sickness, and by superb organization and stupendous heroism, to push what was the most backward empire into what is today the most advanced civilization of equal peoples and nations around the globe.
Something tells me the Anti-Defamation League would not agree with Herbert Apticker on this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think he brings up like a very good framing of the issue, though, when he talks about affirmative action, because, he does talk about the nationally oppressed and and he even brings in other issues that I hadn't even thought about. He talks about wiping out illiteracy and getting rid of chronic sickness. He viewed those in a way of like, I guess in a way he ties it into kind of affirmative action in a way. But just that kind of that whole thing, I think that is the good way of framing it, of course, because we're not going to get like the affirmative action that we want until we take back the means of production.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is the boss's strategy. It is the fascist strategy. It is the it's the Trump administration strategy to pit working class people against each other.
Right.
Scapegoats. And that's why it's a progressive quality progressive to support affirmative action. They can't use the like pitting different classes of people when they obviously have affirmative action laws to protect, giving you a bottom for everyone regardless. And that is what I think gets removed when we lose these progressive qualities like affirmative action. And you see it happen. I don't want to go. I know we're not a sports podcast, but I
View
don't
from
know if
left
anyone.
field, Jerry. View from left field. Go ahead.
Word is we almost became a sports podcast, if you could believe
We
it.
considered it.
Oh, we should have the view from left field on the field or something.
Yeah.
As after hours for or Patreon. But it's a great idea. I don't know. There's a football game today, but if you actually look at like the Rooney Rule, which is what the NFL put in to make sure that they had to for any of the higher coach positions, assistants or head coach, you are required to interview someone of a minority and a woman to make those interviews. And you can relate this to everything, but I forget his name. Dungy, I think he's like a commentator now.
Tony Dungy.
Yeah, and was a great coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. But anyways,
he was a Colts coach, wasn't he?
Oh, he was he was for the, and I think
he
was known when he would beat the Chiefs. But anyways, his people around him were also African Americans, just so happens, and a lot of them became coaches and assistant coaches because of that. And that just goes to show like how affirmative action in practicality kind of just integrates into a higher quality of society. We could relate this to anything. It doesn't have to be sports, although I don't mind talking about it.
Right. No, I think you did bring up kind of a good analogy there.
And that's going to go away.
Yeah.
It's probably it's going to suck.
You think that rule is going to go away?
Rooney Rule will go away, and now we're going to
so?
just get literally vanilla football. But
yeah, I've been hearing football fans complaining about that for years because they are
because the NFL, the NFL is run by 32 capitalists. Mm-hmm. 31 Green Bay. I don't want to talk about the team, but they're is actually run by the city. And they make the decisions, is the capitalists there, and they're all majority white, and it's that's who they know. You could just see what they did to the Cowboys. But anyhow,
so is this your rallying call to nationalize all the football teams? Or
hell yes! Think how much better the fans would be if they actually controlled the teams that they love. Oh yes, the whisper of a dream, but That's not going to happen. I think, yeah, we would probably have communism before that.
You heard that?
Sure.
You heard it here first. Jerry nationalizing the football teams, the NFL. You heard
That's
it here
right.
first, everyone. So remember, in like, who knows, 10, 15 years when it happens, you can come back
We'll
here.
look back on
And
this
we
day.
no more Taylor Swift being played on the
Yeah.
Everyone will be happy.
We'll nationalize the NFL and we'll purge the NCAA.
Sure.
It is wild that the place we see people talking about this most in kind of the cultural zeitgeist is in the products they consume. Like we were talking about video games earlier. Everyone knows gamers are the most oppressed class in America.
Yep.
Right. Yep.
Movies and sports are the places where we hear people actually talking about these programs as if it's where it's going to affect them the most, and not when they're trying to get a job or when they're hiring new people at their own company, which is the places where it's probably going to actually have the most impact.
Right.
It's interesting and kind of sad.
Yeah, I mean, like to go back on that point too, you know, when Jimmy brought it up, you know, something that immediately came to mind as far as you know, like gaming, for instance, was did anyone here play Baldur's Gate 3?
Yes.
Yep.
Of course. So I mean, I think we all know that is a fantastic game. I mean, I think Jimmy did bring up a good point where, you know, there are companies that will, you know, they will sacrifice the quality of their game for, you know, for meeting other metrics and whatnot. But like, I think, you know, when we look at like Baldur's Gate 3, I mean, that game in every metric, or in every way of the word, was a fantastic game. But yet we had people being like, oh, well, there's a black character in this game. This is woke slop, or they would say stuff like that. And you know, when I thought about it today, especially in the context of that game, because it's like, okay, here's a literal fantasy game. You can play as whatever you want, and you're getting mad that there is a black character in the game. It's just like, come on.
I'm sorry, I don't like my dragonkin being black-skinned.
Yeah.
Also, yes, let's complain about that instead of how transactions are basically ruining every game company.
Right.
Companies only put out sequels just as money pits or with features that should have been in a base game, or that they've been basically working their engineers and whoever's left on their workforce to death while basically bashing down any unionizations or any kind of effort to make it worthwhile for actually working at these companies. No, let's concentrate on the skin color, or god, woman color. This woman character who's the main character has pink hair.
I think a bit of it is just culture war. Like people, what do they call them? They call them like tourists, where they go around to any new product that's released and they say it's woke and they're mad about it. And it's like, you've never talked about this thing ever before, but now that it's woke, you care.
Yeah. I remember people made a big deal when, I forget, one of those shooting games about World War II. What's it, like Modern Warfare?
Call of Duty, Modern Warfare.
And they put a women Soviet sniper in the front, and they're like, this is ahistorical and incorrect. They're just doing this for wokeism. And I'm like, but there were women Soviet snipers,
not
and
300
really
men.
Good. And that actually happened.
Call of Duty Vanguard was dog shit, though. It's I'm sorry. Okay, we're a gaming podcast now, everybody.
We were a sports podcast for about 5 minutes. We're a gaming podcast.
There was a Soviet babushka who told Stalin of, I'm buying my own tank, let me go to the front and kill some Nazis. And Stalin's like, okay.
Yeah, right.
Very productive.
I think we had our time in the sun as the gaming podcast. Now we're retiring that. So yes. Well, thank you everyone for joining today for our wonderful episode about Trump and Musk and everything that's been going on since he got inaugurated. To our panel members, thank you for the discussion today. I think we had a lot of good laughs, a lot of good discussion too. We will see you next time. Thank you for joining.